Welcome to Dreamweaver Tales. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let my voice guide you into a world of peaceful dreams. You know, there's something magical about arriving somewhere just as the weather begins to change, when the very air seems to whisper that you've come at exactly the right moment. As your car turns down the long gravel driveway, the engine's gentle hum mingles with the first tentative drops of rain beginning to tap against the windshield. The wipers move in their slow, rhythmic dance, clearing away the scattered droplets that catch the gray afternoon light like tiny prisms. The old farmhouse comes into view gradually, emerging from behind a cluster of weathered oak trees whose leaves have turned the color of burnished copper and deep amber. Their branches sway with a languid grace, releasing the occasional leaf that spirals down to join its companions, carpeting the ground below. The house itself seems to have grown from the landscape rather than been built upon it. Its fieldstone foundation and cedar shake walls bearing the gentle patina of decades spent weathering countless seasons just like this one. As you step out of the car, the cool October air wraps around you like a familiar friend you haven't seen in far too long. The temperature carries that perfect autumn crispness that makes you want to breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the scent of wood smoke drifting from the farmhouse chimney and the earthy richness of wet leaves beginning their slow return to the soil. The rain is still tentative, more of a fine mist really, touching your skin with the gentlest possible caress. Your footsteps crunch softly on the gravel as you make your way toward the front porch, each step releasing the mineral scent of wet stone. The driveway curves past an old wooden fence where wild blackberry vines have woven themselves through the weathered boards, their leaves now turned to shades of burgundy and gold. Beyond the fence, you can see the outline of what was once a vegetable garden, now peaceful in its autumn dormancy, with a few hardy chrysanthemums still blooming in cheerful clusters of yellow and bronze. The farmhouse porch extends the full width of the building, supported by thick wooden posts that have been worn smooth by countless hands over the years. A collection of mismatched rocking chairs sits arranged along its length, their seats worn to a comfortable smoothness that speaks of many quiet evenings spent watching the sun set over the surrounding fields. Hanging baskets still hold the remnants of summer's flowers, though now they've given way to trailing ivy and the silvery seed heads of spent petunias that catch what little light filters through the gathering clouds. The front door is painted a deep forest green, the kind of color that seems to change subtly depending on the light, sometimes appearing almost black, other times revealing hints of blue in its depths. Its brass knocker has developed that beautiful verdigris patina that only comes with age and weather, and when you lift your hand to announce your arrival, the metal feels cool and substantial beneath your fingers. But before you can knock, the door opens with a soft creak of well-oiled hinges, as if the house itself has been expecting you. The threshold between outside and inside seems to shimmer for just a moment as you step across it, leaving behind the cool dampness of the approaching rain for the warm, enveloping atmosphere of the farmhouse interior. The front hall welcomes you with wide plank wooden floors that show the gentle wear patterns of generations of footsteps, their surface polished to a soft glow that reflects the light streaming in through tall windows. The walls are painted in a shade of cream that has aged to the color of old parchment, and they're lined with simple wooden pegs where coats and scarves hang in comfortable disarray. To your right, an old grandfather clock stands sentinel in the corner, its pendulum marking time with a gentle tick-tock that seems to slow your heartbeat to match its steady rhythm. The sound is hypnotic in the way that only old clocks can be, each tick perfectly spaced, creating a meditation on the passage of time that feels both ancient and eternal. Above the clock, a small window reveals the side yard, where a massive maple tree spreads its canopy, its leaves now turned to every shade of red and orange imaginable. With practiced grace, it leaps onto the porch and settles itself on a folded blanket someone has left in the corner, beginning the methodical process of grooming its slightly damp fur. The rain has found its steady rhythm now, no longer building, but settled into that perfect consistency that promises to continue for hours. It's not the kind of storm that announces itself with thunder and lightning, but rather the gentle, persistent rain that knows its job is to soak deep into the soil and prepare the earth for winter's rest. Each drop contributes to the growing symphony of water, meeting wood, stone, metal, and earth in a composition that seems designed specifically for this moment, this place, this evening. Through the rain, you can just make out the warm glow beginning to appear in the windows of the farmhouse behind you. Someone has lit the lamps early, creating pools of golden light that spill out onto the wet porch boards and reflect in the puddles forming in the yard. The light doesn't fight against the gathering darkness, but rather embraces it, creating a harmony between the cozy interior and the wild beauty of the storm outside. As evening settles around the old farmhouse like a comfortable quilt, you realize that you've arrived at exactly the right moment. The rain continues its gentle percussion on the roof above. The cat purrs softly from its corner, and the rocking chair moves with the easy rhythm of breathing. This is how stories begin, not with dramatic flourishes, but with quiet moments that open like flowers to reveal the extraordinary beauty hidden within the ordinary world. The scent of something wonderful drifts out from the kitchen. Perhaps soup simmering on the old stove or bread baking in the wood-fired oven. Whatever it is, it mingles with the rain-washed air to create an atmosphere of perfect contentment. The kind of moment that makes you understand why people write poems about autumn evenings in old farmhouses where time moves at the speed of falling rain. Drawn by that wonderful aroma and the gentle pull of curiosity, you find yourself stepping away from the farmhouse porch, your bare feet finding the smooth wooden steps that have been worn soft by decades of rain and sun, and countless footsteps before yours. The transition from covered shelter to open air feels like stepping through a veil of sensation as the gentle autumn rain begins to kiss your shoulders and crown your head with the finest droplets, each one carrying the coolness of the darkening sky. The garden path stretches before you like an invitation written in weathered brick and moss-softened stone. Someone laid these bricks by hand long ago, setting each one with care and attention to create a walkway that curves naturally through what must once have been a magnificent garden. Now in the gathering twilight, with rain falling steadily but softly, the path takes on an almost magical quality. Each brick darkened to a deep russet brown that seems to glow with its own inner warmth against the silvery light of the rain-soaked evening. Your feet find the path instinctively, and you're surprised by how warm the bricks feel beneath your soles, as if they've been storing the day's gentle heat and releasing it slowly into the cool air. The surface is textured just enough to provide a secure grip even in the rain, and you can feel the subtle variations where some bricks have settled slightly over the years, creating tiny valleys and rises that massage your feet with each step. On either side of the path, the remnants of what must have been elaborate flower beds now host a wild symphony of autumn plants that have claimed this space as their own. Tall grasses bend gracefully under the weight of accumulated raindrops, their seed heads catching the dim light, like tiny lanterns swaying in the gentle breeze. Between them, patches of herbs have gone delightfully wild. You can smell rosemary and thyme, releasing their oils into the moist air as the rain strikes their leaves, creating an aromatherapy session that seems designed by nature herself for the deepest relaxation. The sound of your footsteps on the wet brick creates a rhythm all its own, a soft padding that harmonizes perfectly with the rain's percussion on leaves and grass and the distant melody of water running through the old gutters and downspouts of the farmhouse behind you. Each step releases tiny splashes that barely reach your ankles, and you can feel the cool moisture beginning to gather on your skin in the most refreshing way, as if the evening air is gently washing away every tension you've carried with you to this magical place. As you walk deeper into the garden, the path begins to reveal its secrets. Here, a cluster of old rose bushes, heavy with late-blooming flowers that release their fragrance more intensely in the rain, as if the water unlocks their essence and carries it directly to your senses. The petals are deep burgundy and soft pink, colors that seem almost luminous against the gray-green backdrop of the evening. And when you pause to breathe in their scent, you notice how the rain has collected in perfect droplets along their edges, like nature's own jewelry adorning these autumn queens. There, where the path curves gently to the left, an old wooden trellis still supports the skeletal remains of what must have been a spectacular climbing vine. Now in the rain-softened light, you can see how new growth has begun to wind its way up the weathered wood, tender green shoots that seem to glow with vitality against the silver-brown patina of the aged structure. The rain drums gently against the trellis, creating a soft wooden percussion that adds another layer to the evening's natural symphony. And you find yourself pausing to listen, to let the sound wash through you like a meditation bell, calling you deeper into this state of perfect presence. The garden path seems to understand the art of meandering, never hurrying you toward any particular destination, but instead encouraging you to notice each small wonder along the way. Here, a patch of mint has spread into a fragrant carpet that releases its cooling scent with each raindrop. There, a cluster of late-blooming lavender that fills the air with the most soothing perfume when the rain strikes its purple spikes. The combination of scents creates an ever-changing bouquet as you walk, each step bringing new aromatic discoveries that seem to slow your breathing and soften your thoughts without any effort on your part. The twilight is deepening now, and the rain seems to be intensifying slightly, though it maintains that perfect gentleness that makes you want to stay outside and let it wash over you rather than seek shelter. The sound has evolved into something richer, more complex, as the water finds different surfaces and textures throughout the garden. You can hear it pattering against broad leaves, trickling through smaller plants, splashing gently into what sounds like a small puddle or perhaps an old bird bath somewhere among the foliage. As your eyes adjust to the growing dimness, you begin to notice how the rain transforms everything it touches. The leaves of a nearby maple tree have become mirrors, each one reflecting the soft light of the sky and creating tiny, flickering points of illumination that dance with every breath of wind. The grass along the path edge seems to have become more intensely green, as if the rain has awakened some inner vitality that glows even in the fading light. Everything appears more vivid, more present, as if the rain has washed away some invisible film and revealed the true colors and textures that were always there, waiting to be noticed. The brick path beneath your feet begins to show small pools of water gathering in the natural depressions between the stones, each one reflecting the darkening sky like a tiny window into another world. As you walk, your feet occasionally disturb these miniature mirrors, sending gentle ripples across their surfaces that catch and scatter the available light in the most mesmerizing patterns. The sound of these small disturbances adds yet another note to the rain's symphony. Tiny splashes and gurgles that speak of water finding its way, always flowing, always moving toward its natural destination. You notice that your breathing has synchronized itself with your walking pace, which has naturally slowed to match the contemplative rhythm of the rain. Each inhalation brings the cool, clean air deep into your lungs, carrying with it all the garden's fragrances and the freshness that only comes with falling rain. Each exhalation seems to release something you no longer need: tension, worry, the accumulated stress of busy days and sleepless nights. The simple act of walking this rain-washed path has become a form of moving meditation, your body and mind settling into a rhythm as natural and unhurried as the rain itself. Ahead you can just make out what appears to be a small wooden bench, positioned perfectly to take advantage of what must be a lovely view during daylight hours. Even now, in the gathering darkness and gentle rain, it calls to you like an old friend, inviting you to sit and stay a while. The bench appears to be made of the same weathered wood as the trellis, aged to that perfect silver gray that only comes from years of exposure to sun and rain and changing seasons. someone placed it here with care, choosing exactly the right spot for quiet contemplation and peaceful observation of the garden's ever-changing moods. The rain continues its gentle work, and you can hear it beginning to collect and flow through the garden's hidden drainage systems, old clay pipes, and stone channels that carry the water in a complex network of tiny streams and rivulets that weave through the planted areas like veins in a leaf. The sound is incredibly soothing, this quiet movement of water finding its path. And you realize that whoever designed this garden understood the importance of working with rain rather than simply directing it away, creating a space where water becomes part of the beauty rather than something to be avoided. As you approach the bench, you notice how the rain has darkened the wood to an even deeper gray, and you can see tiny streams of water running along the grain, following the natural channels carved by time and weather. The sight is oddly fascinating, this simple evidence of water's patient persistence, its ability to shape and change everything it touches through the gentlest possible means. There's something profoundly calming about watching water do what water does, following the path of least resistance, finding its way around obstacles, never forcing but always persistent in its quiet progress toward where it needs to go. The garden path has brought you to this perfect resting spot, and as you stand here in the gentle rain, you realize that the walk itself has worked a kind of magic on your entire being. Your muscles feel loose and relaxed from the easy movement. Your mind has settled into that peaceful state that comes from focusing on immediate sensory experiences rather than abstract worries. And your breathing has found that deep, slow rhythm that signals to your body that all is well, that there's nowhere else you need to be, and nothing else you need to do except stand here in this rain-blessed garden and let the evening's tranquility seep into your very bones. As this deep evening contentment settles within you, your feet begin to carry you naturally toward the large weathered barn that stands like a gentle giant at the far edge of the farmyard. The rain continues its soft percussion against your shoulders and hair, each drop a tiny messenger of the sky's generosity, and you find yourself drawn to the shelter and stories that this old structure promises. Your steps squelch pleasantly in the wet grass, creating a rhythm that harmonizes with the rain's own music, and you notice how the barn seems to grow larger and more welcoming with each step you take toward it. The barn's wooden siding tells decades of stories through its silvered grain and gentle warping. Weather has painted it in shades of dove gray and warm brown, with streaks of darker timber showing where rain has run in familiar channels year after year. You can see where generations of storms have left their gentle marks, not as damage, but as character, the way laugh lines around kind eyes speak of joy rather than age. The roof sags just slightly in the middle, creating perfect valleys for rainwater to gather and flow, and you watch as tiny streams cascade from the eaves in steady, hypnotic curtains. As you approach the wide barn door, which hangs slightly ajar on its ancient hinges, you notice the distinctive scent that belongs only to old farm buildings, that warm mixture of aged wood, dried hay, and the faint sweetness of long-stored grain. The rain has awakened these dormant fragrances, drawing them out like memories being gently coaxed to the surface. Your hand reaches for the weathered door handle, worn smooth by countless hands before yours, and you feel the solid weight of the heavy door as it swings open with a soft creak that speaks of decades of faithful service. The interior of the barn welcomes you with its cathedral-like spaciousness and the immediate change in acoustics as the rain's sound shifts from direct contact to a more muffled symphony overhead. The massive wooden beams stretch high above you, disappearing into shadows that dance gently with the movement of rain-stirred air. Dust motes drift lazily in the dim light, filtering through small windows set high in the walls, each particle moving in slow, mesmerizing spirals that seem choreographed by invisible currents. The floor beneath your feet consists of wide wooden planks, polished smooth by years of use, with gaps between them that allow glimpses of the earth below. You choose a spot near the open door where you can still feel connected to the rain while enjoying the barn's protective embrace. Settling onto an old wooden crate that sits conveniently nearby, you discover it's the perfect height to serve as a rustic seat, its surface worn to velvet smoothness by decades of use. From this vantage point, you can watch the rain create its liquid curtain across the doorway, each drop catching what little light remains in the evening and transforming it into tiny, fleeting diamonds before disappearing into the growing puddles outside. The sound of rain against the metal roof above creates a symphony that's entirely different from what you heard in the garden. Here, each drop makes contact with a soft, metallic ping that varies in pitch depending on where it strikes. Some areas of the roof produce deeper, more resonant tones, while others create lighter, more musical notes. And together they form a complex percussion that seems to have been composed specifically for this moment, specifically for your listening pleasure. The sound rises and falls with the rain's intensity, creating natural crescendos and diminuendos that would make any orchestra envious. Between the roof's gentle percussion, you become aware of other sounds that belong uniquely to this sheltered space. Water drips steadily from a small leak somewhere in the far corner, each drop landing with a soft plop in what sounds like an old metal bucket, creating its own steady rhythm that counterpoints the roof's irregular symphony. The barn's wooden frame creaks occasionally, not with distress, but with the satisfied settling sounds of old timber expanding and contracting with the rain-cooled air, like an elderly person sinking contentedly into a favorite chair. Your breathing has synchronized with these gentle rhythms, and you notice how the barn's spacious interior allows each breath to feel deeper, more expansive. The air here carries coolness from the rain mixed with the warm, dry scent of old hay and wood, creating a combination that seems to invite longer, slower inhalations. Your shoulders release tension you didn't realize you were carrying as you lean back against the barn wall, feeling the solid support of timber that has weathered countless storms and seasons. Through the doorway, you can see how the rain transforms the farmyard into something magical and mysterious. What was familiar in daylight now becomes a collection of soft shapes and gentle sounds, each element blurred and softened by the rain's veil. The old water pump near the house appears as a dark silhouette, while the split-rail fence loses its sharp edges and becomes a series of gentle curves, disappearing into the misty distance. Puddles reflect the last traces of light from the cloudy sky, creating mirrors that double the beauty of this rain-soaked world. The temperature inside the barn provides perfect comfort, cool enough to feel refreshing after your walk through the rain, yet warm enough from the day's stored heat in the wooden structure to prevent any chill. You can feel the barn's thermal mass slowly releasing the warmth it collected during the day, creating gentle air currents that carry scents and sounds throughout the space. These subtle movements of air brush against your skin like the softest touches, reminding you of the barn's living, breathing quality. As you sit in this peaceful sanctuary, your eyes begin to adjust to the dimmer light, revealing details that weren't immediately visible. Cobwebs stretch between the beams overhead, each strand made visible by tiny water droplets that have somehow found their way inside, creating delicate jewelry that sparkles faintly in the filtered light. Old farming tools hang from wooden pegs on the walls, a scythe with a handle worn smooth by generations of hands, leather harnesses that retain the suppleness of good craftsmanship despite their age, and metal implements whose purposes you can only guess at, but whose solid construction speaks of a time when things were built to last centuries. The rain's tempo shifts slightly, becoming more gentle and steady, and you notice how this change affects the barn's entire acoustic environment. The sharper percussion on the roof mellows into a softer whisper, while the drip in the corner maintains its consistent rhythm like a meditation bell, marking moments of perfect peace. Your heartbeat has slowed to match these natural rhythms, and you find yourself entering that wonderful state where time seems to stretch and bend, where minutes feel like hours of contentment. A slight breeze stirs through the open door, carrying with it the fresh scent of rain-washed earth and growing things. This moving air creates subtle sounds as it encounters the barn's interior. A gentle whistling past a loose board, the soft rustling of something lightweight hanging from a nail, the almost inaudible movement of air through the gaps between floorboards. These sounds layer together into a composition that's constantly changing, yet always soothing, like a lullaby that reinvents itself with each breath. You close your eyes and let your other senses expand to fill the space that sight usually occupies. The barn's acoustics become even more pronounced, every small sound gaining definition and meaning. You can hear the rain's individual voices now, the quick patter of smaller drops, the fuller sound of larger ones, the occasional splash as accumulated water falls from a saturated surface. Each sound has its place in the evening's chorus, and you realize you've become part of this composition simply by being present. Your breathing and heartbeat adding their own gentle rhythms to the mix. The wooden crate beneath you has warmed to your body temperature, becoming more comfortable with each passing moment. Its surface, smoothed by decades of use, feels almost luxurious against your palms as as you rest your hands on either side of where you sit. You can feel the grain of the wood through your fingertips, each line and curve telling its own story of growth and time, of seasons weathered and storms survived. This connection to something so solid and enduring adds to your sense of being rooted in this moment, anchored in this place of peace. Through your closed eyelids, you're aware of the subtle changes in light as clouds shift overhead and rain intensity varies. The barn's interior brightens and dims in gentle waves, creating a natural rhythm that seems to encourage the deeper relaxation that's been building since you first stepped into this shelter. Your muscles continue to release their hold on tension, allowing gravity to settle you more completely onto your improvised seat, your spine finding its natural curve against the barn wall's supportive embrace. The rain continues its patient work of transformation outside, washing the world clean and preparing it for whatever tomorrow might bring. But tomorrow feels very far away from this moment. This breath, this perfect convergence of shelter and storm, comfort and wildness, solitude and connection to something larger than yourself. The barn holds you in its weathered arms while the rain sings you deeper into tranquility. Each drop a note in an endless song of renewal and peace. Each drop a note in an endless song of renewal and peace. From where you rest in the barn's gentle darkness, your gaze drifts naturally toward the farmhouse, drawn by the soft, amber glow emanating from its kitchen windows. The light spills out into the rain-soaked evening like honey poured slowly from a wooden spoon, creating pools of warmth that seem to pulse gently against the weathered clapboard siding. Through the glass, you can make out the suggestion of movement. Perhaps curtains stirring in the draft from an old window frame, or steam rising from something warm on the stove. The pull of that welcoming light grows stronger as the rain continues its rhythmic percussion on the barn roof above you. There's something irresistibly inviting about those illuminated windows, the way they promise shelter not just from the storm, but from the vastness of the autumn evening itself. Rising slowly from your comfortable nest in the hay, you feel the wooden planks of the barn floor cool and solid beneath your feet, each board worn smooth by decades of farm work and weather. The short journey across the farmyard transforms into a meditation on water and earth. Rain meets your skin in a gentle baptism, each droplet carrying the essence of clouds that have traveled countless miles to arrive at this precise moment. Your footsteps create small splashes in the puddles that have formed in the uneven ground, the water reflecting fragments of kitchen light like scattered coins. The scent of wet earth rises up around you, rich and loamy, mixed with the green smell of grass, drinking deeply after a long, dry spell. As you approach the farmhouse, details emerge from the rain-blurred evening with increasing clarity. The kitchen windows are old, the kind with multiple small panes separated by thin wooden mullions that have been painted and repainted over generations. Some of the glass bears the subtle imperfections of age, creating gentle distortions that make the warm light dance and shimmer. Water streams down the exterior of the windows in irregular rivulets, following paths carved by countless previous storms. The back door of the farmhouse stands slightly ajar, protected by a small overhang, supported by two weathered posts. The sound of rain drumming against the metal roof of this little shelter creates a different rhythm than the one you heard in the barn. Sharper, more immediate, like fingers tapping thoughtfully on a table. You pause here for a moment, feeling the subtle shift from the open exposure of the yard to the partial shelter of the doorway. Crossing the threshold feels like stepping into a different world entirely. The kitchen embraces you with its accumulated warmth, not just the temperature, but the deeper warmth of a space that has been truly lived in. The wooden floors creak softly under your feet, with a sound that speaks of countless meals prepared, conversations shared, and quiet evening moments exactly like this one. These are not the hollow creaks of an empty house, but the satisfied sighs of wood that has settled into its purpose over many decades. The kitchen itself tells the story of a working farm through every carefully chosen detail. The countertops are worn butcher block, their surface bearing the gentle scars of knife work and the subtle stains of berries processed and vegetables prepared. A large farmhouse sink sits beneath the main window, its porcelain surface glowing softly in the lamplight, still holding a few dishes that wait patiently for morning's attention. The faucet is old brass, its surface darkened with age and use, though it still gleams with care. Above the sink, the window frames a view of the barn you've just left, though now it appears as little more than a dark silhouette against the rain-heavy sky. Water courses down the glass in ever-changing patterns, creating a living artwork that shifts and flows with each gust of wind. The windowsill holds a few small treasures, a smooth stone that might have been picked up from the creek, a small ceramic pitcher glazed in deep blue, and a cutting from some herb garden plant rooting quietly in a mason jar of water. The light in this kitchen comes from several sources, each contributing its own quality to the overall atmosphere. A pendant lamp hangs over a small wooden table, its shade made of what looks like aged metal, with small perforations that cast tiny stars of light across the ceiling. On the counter, a smaller lamp with a fabric shade creates a pool of softer illumination, while the open door of an old cast-iron stove reveals the deeper orange glow of a fire burning low and steady. Moving closer to that stove, you can feel the radiant heat it gives off. Not the harsh blast of modern heating, but the gentle, even warmth of burning wood. The stove itself is a beautiful piece of functional art, its surface decorated with subtle, raised patterns and fitted with brass handles that have been polished smooth by generations of hands. The fire inside burns quietly, occasionally sending up tiny sparks when a piece of wood settles, the sound muffled by the heavy iron construction. On top of the stove, a large kettle sits quietly, its copper surface reflecting the warm light and showing the subtle patina that comes only with years of faithful service. Steam rises from its spout in a thin, steady stream, indicating that the water inside is kept always at the perfect temperature for tea or coffee, or simply the comfort of knowing that warmth is readily available. The sound it makes is barely audible, the softest whisper of vapor meeting cool air. The kitchen kitchen table draws you naturally toward it, positioned as it is in the heart of the room, where the various sources of light converge most pleasingly. Its surface is scarred pine, the kind that bears witness to decades of family meals, homework sessions, and quiet conversations over morning coffee. Someone has left a book open beside a half-finished cup of something warm. You can see the faint ring where the mug is rested on the wooden surface, and the pages are held open by a pair of reading glasses that catch the light from the pendant lamp above. Taking a seat in one of the mismatched wooden chairs, you become part of this intimate tableau. The chair itself seems to welcome you, its seat worn smooth and shaped by use into something perfectly comfortable. From this vantage point, the entire kitchen reveals itself as a composition of textures and tones that speak of contentment and continuity. The walls, painted in a warm cream color that has mellowed with age, display the accumulated treasures of rural life. A calendar from the local feed store, a small collection of wooden spoons hanging from hand-forged hooks, and a single shelf holding mason jars filled with dried beans and grains. The rain outside continues its patient work, but from within this glowing kitchen, it transforms from something you experience directly into something you observe and appreciate from a position of complete security. The sound of water against the windows becomes a gentle percussion that emphasizes rather than disturbs the quietude of the interior space. Each gust of wind that rattles the old window frames only serves to heighten your appreciation for the solid walls and warm light that surround you. The very air in this kitchen holds layers of scent that tell stories of seasons past and meals shared. There's the underlying smell of wood smoke from the stove, mixed with traces of herbs that have been dried and stored, and the faintest suggestion of baking, perhaps bread from earlier in the day, or cookies that filled the house with sweetness hours ago. These aromas don't announce themselves boldly, but rather form a subtle background that speaks of a home where cooking is both necessity and pleasure. From your position at the table, you can see through a doorway into what appears to be a pantry or small storage room. Shelves line the walls, filled with the preserved abundance of harvest time. Jars of tomatoes glowing like rubies in the soft light. Pickles and preserves in neat rows. And cloth bags that likely hold the winter supply of dried beans and grains. This glimpse into the farm's preparedness for the cold months ahead creates a deep sense of security. The knowledge that these walls protect not just against tonight's storm, but against the uncertainty of seasons yet to come. The warmth from the stove continues to radiate outward in gentle waves, creating subtle currents in the air that you can almost see, as well as feel. These invisible rivers of heated air carry with them the essence of burning maple and oak, woods that grew slowly in the forests surrounding this farm, and now give back their stored sunlight in the form of comfort against autumn's advancing chill. The heat seems to pool around the table where you sit, creating a perfect microclimate of contentment. Outside, the rain has settled into a steady, unhurried rhythm that no longer varies much in intensity. It falls now with the patience of weather that knows it has all night to complete its work, washing the last stubborn leaves from the oak trees and filling the farm's various containers, rain barrels, watering troughs, and the countless small depressions in the earth that will become temporary mirrors reflecting tomorrow's sky. The sound it makes against the kitchen windows is like a lullaby written by the weather itself, each droplet contributing to a composition that seems designed specifically to enhance the peace of this warm, lit space. The interplay between the storm outside and the sanctuary within creates a perfect balance of awareness and detachment. You are conscious of the wind and rain, appreciative of their wild beauty and their essential role in the farm's continued fertility, yet completely insulated from any discomfort they might bring. This kitchen serves as the ideal observation point for appreciating weather as a distant performance rather than an immediate physical challenge. As you sit at this welcoming table, surrounded by the accumulated comfort of generations, the evening seems to expand and slow, each moment becoming more spacious and complete. The warm light from the various lamps creates a bubble of illumination that feels infinite despite the modest size of the room, while the gentle sounds of rain and fire and settling wood weave together into a symphony of domestic tranquility that carries you deeper into the embrace of this perfect autumn evening. The gentle call of the evening air beyond the farmhouse windows begins to draw you toward new discoveries, and you find yourself rising from the kitchen table with the unhurried grace of someone who has all the time in the world. Your feet carry you naturally toward the back door, where the sound of rain has been painting its quiet invitation throughout the evening. The wooden floor beneath you creaks softly with the familiar song of old boards that have supported countless footsteps through decades of daily life, each gentle groan a note in the ongoing composition of this living house. As you approach the door, your hand finds the smooth brass handle, worn to a lustrous patina by generations of palms that have turned it in just this way. The metal feels cool against your skin, a pleasant contrast to the warmth that still radiates through you from the kitchen's embrace. When you turn the handle and ease the door open, the most wonderful thing happens. The sound of the rain suddenly expands, blooming from background music into a full orchestral experience that surrounds you completely. You step across the threshold onto a covered porch that immediately reveals itself as one of those magical spaces that exists between worlds. Here, you're neither fully inside nor completely outside, but suspended in that perfect liminal place where the comfort of shelter meets the wild freedom of the storm. The porch stretches along the entire back of the farmhouse, its wooden floor painted a soft gray that is faded and weathered into something that looks like morning mist, made solid. Overhead, a peaked roof of weathered cedar shingles creates a protective canopy, while beyond its edge, the rain falls in steady silver curtains that catch and scatter the gentle light spilling from the kitchen windows behind you. The air here carries a completely different quality than the warm, herb-scented atmosphere of the kitchen. It's cooler, fresher, filled with the green scent of rain-washed earth and the clean smell of water running from the gutters into old wooden rain barrels positioned at the corners of the porch. You can taste the moisture in each breath, sweet and pure, as if the storm has washed the entire world clean and left only the most essential elements behind. The temperature is perfect, cool enough to make you grateful for the warmth still held in your clothes, yet mild enough that the evening air feels like a gentle caress against your face and hands. Your eyes adjust to this new perspective, and the porch begins to reveal its accumulated treasures in the soft light. Along the wall of the house, a collection of old wooden chairs sits in comfortable arrangement, not matching, but harmonizing in the way that things do when they've been chosen for comfort rather than appearance. There's a rocking chair with arms smoothed by countless hours of use, a straight-backed chair with a woven rush seat, and a small bench that looks perfect for removing muddy boots or simply sitting to watch the rain. Each piece of furniture seems to hold the memory of quiet evenings spent in just this way, watching storms pass over the rolling farmland. Hanging baskets dangle from the hooks screwed into the porch ceiling beams, their trailing plants creating gentle curtains of green that sway slightly in the air, currents stirred by the rainfall. Some hold late-season flowers that nod heavy heads in the moist air, while others contain herbs that release their fragrance each time the evening breeze moves through them. The scent of mint and oregano mingles with the petrichor rising from the rain-soaked garden, creating an olfactory experience so rich and layered that each breath brings new discoveries. You settle into the rocking chair and immediately understand why it has earned its place of honor on this porch. The seat embraces you with the perfect give of well-worn wood, curved and shaped by time into a form that seems designed specifically for your body. When you begin to rock gently, the chair moves with the fluid rhythm of water, creating the softest creaking sound that adds its own percussion to the symphony of the rain. The motion is hypnotic, each forward and backward movement settling you deeper into a state of profound relaxation. From this vantage point, the view opens before you like a living painting that changes with each moment. The farmyard stretches away into the gentle darkness, its familiar shapes transformed by the rain into something mysterious and beautiful. You can see the old barn in the distance, its metal roof catching occasional glints of light as water streams down its weathered sides. The vegetable garden closer to the house has become a patchwork of shadows and gleaming surfaces, where rainwater pools in the furrows between planted rows and drips steadily from the broad leaves of squash and pumpkin plants. The sound of the rain here is completely immersive, surrounding you with layers of rhythm and melody that shift constantly as the storm moves across the landscape. On the roof above, you can hear the steady drumming of drops against the cedar shingles, a percussion that varies in intensity as the clouds release their burden in waves of heavier and lighter flow. From the gutters comes the liquid music of water running toward the downspouts, while at the corners of the porch, the rain barrels add their own hollow, resonant notes as streams pour into them from above. But perhaps most beautiful of all is the sound of rain meeting earth, that soft, continuous whisper that rises from every surface as water soaks into soil, splashes against leaves, and runs in tiny rivulets through the grass. It's a sound that seems to contain the very essence of growth and renewal, the audible promise that tomorrow will bring fresh green shoots and deeper roots, that the cycle of seasons continues its ancient dance of death and rebirth. As you rock gently in your chair, your hands naturally come to rest on the smooth wooden arms, worn silk soft by decades of contact with human touch. The wood still holds a hint of the day's warmth, gradually cooling in the evening air to match the temperature of your palms. Occasionally, a fine mist of rain drifts onto the porch when the wind shifts, bringing with it the cool kiss of moisture that dots your face and hands with tiny droplets that feel like nature's own blessing. The darkness beyond the porch's protection is not complete. It's the rich, layered darkness of a country evening, where shapes and textures remain visible even without direct light. Your eyes begin to distinguish the various grays and deep blues that make up this nocturnal landscape, finding beauty in the subtle gradations of shadow and the occasional gleam of wet surfaces, catching stray illumination. A fence post here, the curve of a garden path there, the geometric lines of raised vegetable beds all emerge from the darkness like gentle revelations. The evening air carries sounds beyond the rain, the distant lowing of cattle settled in for the night, the soft rustle of small creatures moving through wet grass, the occasional creak of tree branches swaying in the gentle wind. These sounds don't compete with the rain, but weave through it, creating a complex audio landscape that tells the story of a living farm continuing its quiet activities, even in the storm. Somewhere in the darkness, you hear the soft splash of a frog leaping into a puddle, and the sound makes you smile with its simple, perfect rightness. Time seems to slow even further in this sanctuary between the house and storm. Minutes stretch into something more spacious, measured not by clocks, but by the rhythm of your rocking chair and the cycles of intensity in the rainfall. Sometimes the rain gentles to barely more than a whisper, allowing other sounds to emerge more clearly. The drip from eaves, the distant rumble of thunder moving away across the valley, the soft sigh of wind in the apple orchard. Then it intensifies again, drumming more insistently against roof and earth, wrapping you in its white noise embrace that seems to wash away any possibility of worry or restlessness. The porch itself seems alive around you, responding to the moisture in the air with tiny sounds of expansion and settling. The wooden boards beneath your feet emit the occasional quiet pop as they adjust to the changing humidity, while overhead, the beams and rafters add their own subtle commentary and small creaks and sighs. These sounds don't disturb the peace, but deepen it, reminding you that you're sheltered within something that has weathered many such storms, that has provided this same sanctuary to countless others who have sat in this very spot, watching rain transform the familiar landscape into something magical. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the rhythm of your rocking, each inhalation bringing the clean, moist air deeper into your lungs, each exhalation releasing any remaining tension from the day. The combination of movement, sound, and fresh air creates a meditation so natural and effortless that you hardly notice yourself sinking deeper into its embrace. The concerns and complexities of modern life seem as distant as city lights, replaced entirely by this simple, eternal experience of watching rain fall on fertile earth while safely sheltered in a place designed by time and use for exactly this kind of peaceful contemplation. Your steps carry you from the soft earth back toward the heart of the farmstead, where centuries of daily life have worn smooth a courtyard paved with rounded cobblestones. Each stone tells its own quiet story through shape and placement, some large and flat like ancient stepping stones, others small and perfectly round, fitted together by hands that understood how water should flow and where feet would naturally fall. The rain transforms this practical space into something almost musical, each droplet finding its own note as it strikes the varied surfaces and settles into the shallow channels between stones. The sound here differs entirely from rain on leaves or earth. There's a clarity to it, a crystalline precision that speaks of hardness meeting softness, of water finding every tiny depression and curve in the weathered stone. Some drops strike and scatter immediately into smaller beads that roll and dance across the worn surfaces. Others land in the deeper gaps between cobblestones, creating tiny pools that overflow and connect with neighboring puddles in intricate, ever-changing patterns that shift with each fresh wave of rainfall. Your bare feet register every texture as you move slowly across this ancient surface. The larger stones feel smooth and cool, their edges softened by decades of weather and wear. The smaller stones create gentle pressure points against your soles, not uncomfortable, but grounding in the most literal sense, connecting you to this place where generations have walked before you. The water flowing between and around the stones creates natural channels for your feet to follow, and you find yourself unconsciously stepping where the stone placement suggests, following paths laid down by countless others who moved through this space in rain and sunshine, season after season. The courtyard spreads before you in gentle irregularity, wider in some places, narrower where it curves around the corner of the old barn. Along the edges, where cobblestones meet the bases of weathered buildings, the rain has created small rivers that flow with quiet determination toward lower ground. These miniature waterways carry with them the sense of old mortar and sun-warmed stone, mixing the mineral essence of the courtyard with the green freshness of rain itself. Above, the sky continues its steady offering, and you tilt your face upward to feel the rain directly. Here in this open space, with no canopy of leaves to break the fall, each drop arrives cool and clean against your skin. The sensation is immediate and honest. Water meeting skin without interference, carrying with it the temperature of a high altitude and the faint taste of clouds. Your hair grows heavy with moisture, and small streams begin their journey from forehead to chin, following the natural contours of your face before falling to join the greater conversation of rain and stone below. The buildings that frame this courtyard seem to lean in protectively, their weathered walls dark with moisture, their window frames and doorways creating deep shadows that contrast beautifully with the silver-bright rainfall. From somewhere nearby comes the soft sound of water running through old gutters and downspouts, adding bass notes to the higher percussion of a rain on cobblestone. These deeper sounds speak of the farmstead's practical wisdom, systems designed to channel and direct water where it's needed, turning even the heaviest rainfall into a resource rather than a problem. You move toward the center of the courtyard, where the cobblestones form a subtle depression that has become a temporary pool. The water here is clear and shallow, no deeper than the width of your palm, but it transforms the stone beneath into something almost precious. The wet cobblestones gleam with reflected sky, their colors deepened and enriched by the water's presence. What appeared gray and uniform when dry now reveals subtle variations, hints of brown and rust, flecks of quartz that catch what little light filters through the clouds, veins of different minerals that speak of the stone's origins in distant hillsides and ancient riverbeds. The rain continues to stipple the surface of this impromptu pond, each impact creating concentric circles that spread outward until they meet and merge with circles from neighboring drops. The pattern is hypnotic in its randomness, impossible to predict where the next ring will form, yet somehow perfectly balanced in its overall effect. You stand at the edge and watch this aquatic dance, feeling your breathing naturally slow to match the rhythm of expansion and intersection, the eternal conversation between falling water and still surface. Behind you, the sound of rain on the barn's metal roof provides a steady backdrop, while to your left, the old farmhouse receives its share of the downpour with quiet dignity. Each building contributes its own voice to the symphony, the farmhouse with its composite shingles creating a softer patter, the barn's corrugated metal offering a more immediate ping and flow. Together, they frame this moment of standing in open space, receiving the rain directly while surrounded by evidence of human presence and care. The air moves differently here in the courtyard than it did among the fruit trees. Without the complexity of leaves and branches to fragment the breeze, it flows more simply, carrying scents in cleaner layers. First comes the rain itself, that indefinable freshness that seems to cleanse even the act of breathing. Then the wet stone, earthy and mineral rich, speaking of solidity and permanence. Underneath, the faint sweetness of old wood and the metallic tang of iron hinges and hardware, weathering gracefully in their appointed roles. You extend your arms and let the rain run down from shoulders to fingertips, feeling the water's journey across your skin as a meditation in motion. Each drop that travels this path carries with it a kind of blessing, the gift of clouds and altitude, of atmospheric rivers and pressure systems, of the great water cycle that connects this moment to every ocean and mountain range. Your fingers become temporary waterfalls, releasing their gathered moisture back to the cobblestones below, where it immediately joins the greater flow toward whatever drainage this courtyard has found over its many years of faithful service. The temperature of the rain shifts slightly as evening deepens, growing cooler but not uncomfortable, refreshing rather than chilling. This subtle change brings with it an awareness of time's passage, of the day's gradual transition toward rest and quiet. The light, already filtered through clouds, takes on an even softer quality, making the wet surfaces around you glow with gentle luminescence. The cobblestones seem to hold this diffused light in their water-filled gaps, creating the impression of a surface studded with tiny mirrors, each one reflecting a piece of the rain-washed sky. A small movement catches your attention, water finding its way along the slight slope of the courtyard toward what must be an ancient drain or natural outlet. This miniature river, no wider than your hand, flows with the persistence of all water, seeking lower ground. It carries with it tiny debris from the day, a few fallen leaves, perhaps a twig or two, transforming these ordinary elements into boats on an important journey. You follow its progress with your eyes, marveling at how even this smallest example of natural engineering holds lessons about patience, persistence, and the power of gentle but consistent force. The sound of your own movement becomes part of the courtyard's music as you shift from foot to foot, feeling the water splash softly around your ankles. Each step creates its own small disturbance in the rain's steady rhythm, a personal contribution to the evening's ongoing composition. The cobblestones provide perfect, non-slip texture even when wet, their surfaces designed by centuries of use to remain safe and functional regardless of weather. This practical consideration, built into the very foundation of the courtyard, speaks to the farmstead's essential character, beauty and utility, combined in ways so seamless they seem entirely natural. As you stand here in this ancient courtyard, feeling the rain connect you to earth and sky simultaneously, there's a profound sense of belonging to something larger than any individual moment. This space has witnessed thousands of rainstorms, has felt the footsteps of countless people moving about their daily business, has served as stage for the endless drama of weather and season, growth and rest. Tonight, you're simply the latest participant in this ongoing story, adding your own quiet presence to the long history of humans, finding peace and purpose in simple, well-designed spaces where the elements are welcomed rather than merely endured. The conversation between your breathing and the farmhouse settles into its gentlest rhythm as you become aware of a subtle shift happening beyond these protective walls. Through the rain-softened windows, the world outside is beginning its own quiet transformation. The afternoon's sharp edges are dissolving into something softer, more mysterious. Evening is arriving not with fanfare, but with the patient persistence of mist beginning to rise from the rain-soaked fields that stretch away from the farmhouse in every direction. You find yourself drawn to move closer to one of the larger windows, your bare feet silent on the worn wooden floors that have absorbed decades of similar quiet footsteps. The glass is cool against your palm when you rest it there, and through this clear barrier you can see the first tentative wisps of vapor beginning to lift from the dark earth of the nearest field. The mist doesn't announce itself dramatically. Instead, it emerges like a slow exhalation from the soil itself, as if the earth is releasing the day's accumulated warmth in gentle, visible sighs. The rain continues its steady percussion on the farmhouse roof, but now it shares the evening air with something new. You can see how each droplet that strikes the saturated ground seems to coax another thread of vapor skyward. The mist moves with no urgency whatsoever, drifting upward in loose, informal columns that bend and twist with air currents, too subtle for your eyes to detect directly, yet clearly present in the way the vapor responds to their invisible influence. From this window, the view encompasses the entire sweep of the farm's cultivated land. Fields that earlier appeared as distinct plots of varying crops now begin to blur at their boundaries as the mist finds the low places first. The gentle depressions where water naturally collects, the furrows between planted rows, the slight valleys where the land dips toward hidden drainage channels carved by countless seasons of rain, exactly like this one. The vapor rises unevenly, creating a landscape that seems to breathe. Where the mist is thickest, near the small stream that meandered through the farm's eastern boundary, the emerging fog creates layers of transparency. You can see through the first wisps to glimpse the denser accumulations behind them, and beyond those to clearer patches where individual fence posts and the dark silhouettes of scattered fruit trees maintain their sharp definition against the increasingly soft background. There's something profoundly soothing about watching this unhurried process unfold. The mist asks nothing of you except your attention, and even that feels more like a gift offered than an obligation accepted. Each curl of vapor follows its own path upward, some dispersing quickly into the cooling air while others seem to gather strength, joining with nearby streams of moisture to form more substantial clouds that hover just above the field surface like earthbound spirits reluctant to depart. The temperature difference between the warm, rain-soaked earth and the cooling evening air creates perfect conditions for this gentle spectacle. You can almost feel the physics at work. The way heated moisture rises and then encounters the cooler atmosphere, condensing into these visible rivers of mist that transform the familiar landscape into something that exists halfway between the solid world of daylight and the mysterious realm of dreams. Standing here at the window, you become aware of your own breathing, synchronizing with this larger respiratory rhythm of the land itself. Your inhales seem to draw in not just the farmhouse's rain-sweetened air, but also some essential quality of this misty transformation happening beyond the glass. Each exhale releases not just carbon dioxide, but also a little more of whatever tension or urgency might have followed you into this peaceful evening scene. The mist thickens gradually, and with it comes a change in the quality of sound reaching your ears. The rain's impact on leaves and earth becomes slightly muffled, as if a very thin blanket is being drawn across the landscape. But this doesn't create silence. Instead, it reveals new layers of subtle audio that were previously masked. You can hear the barely perceptible whisper of vapor itself, the softest possible sound of moisture moving through still air, like the breath of the earth made audible. Other sounds emerge from this mist-softened world, the liquid murmur of water moving through the small channel that drains the upper field, a sound that was there all along but now seems more present, more intimate. Somewhere in the middle distance, A barn owl calls once, its voice carrying with unusual clarity through the moisture-laden air before being gently absorbed by the thickening mist. The light itself is changing as the vapor accumulates. What began as the ordinary illumination of a rain-dimmed afternoon now takes on a quality that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, diffused through countless tiny water droplets until individual light rays become impossible to trace. The mist acts like nature's most sophisticated lighting designer, creating an atmosphere where shadows are suggestions rather than declarations, where the boundaries between objects become negotiable rather than absolute. You notice how this transformation affects your own perception of space and time. The familiar landmarks of the farm, the red barn in the middle distance, the line of oak trees marking the property's northern boundary, the white farmhouse of the neighboring property visible on the far hill, all begin to appear and disappear like elements in a very slow dream. They're not hidden completely, but rather revealed in layers, becoming more or less visible as the mist shifts and flows around them. This creates a profound sense of being suspended in a moment that exists outside normal temporal flow. The mist erases the sharp definitions that usually help your mind calculate distance and establish your position in relation to the wider world. Instead, you find yourself held in a bubble of immediate sensory experience, where the most important reality is the warmth of the farmhouse at your back, the cool smoothness of the window glass beneath your palm, and the endlessly fascinating dance of vapor and visibility unfolding in the fields before you. The mist seems to have its own intelligence, the way it explores every contour of the land. It pools in the slight depression where an old farm road once ran, creating a river of white that flows along the ghost of that abandoned path. It wraps around the base of a solitary apple tree that stands in the middle of the nearest field, making the tree appear to float on a cloud of its own making. The vapor finds and follows the fence line that separates one field from another, turning the utilitarian boundary into something magical, as if the mist understands property lines and chooses to honor them in its own ethereal way. As the evening progresses, you become aware that you're witnessing a completely unrepeatable moment. Tomorrow's rain, if it comes, will fall on ground with different moisture content, different temperature, different atmospheric pressure. The mist that rises tomorrow will follow similar principles, but create an entirely unique visual symphony. This particular arrangement of vapor and visibility, this specific interaction between earth and air and fading light, exists only now, only tonight, only for these precious minutes, while you stand watching from this farmhouse window. The realization brings with it a deep sense of privilege, of all the evenings when mist has risen from these fields, and there have been hundreds, thousands of such evenings over the decades since this farm was first cleared and planted. You are present for this one. Your eyes are registering this particular interplay of moisture and light. Your breathing is synchronized with this specific moment when the Earth releases its accumulated warmth in visible form, creating beauty that asks for nothing except the gift of witness. There's something ultimately restful about surrendering to this role as observer of the mist's patient choreography. The vapor moves according to laws far older and more reliable than human anxiety or ambition. It rises because warm, moisture-laden air rises. It condenses because cooler temperatures create condensation. It drifts because air currents guide it. These are certainties that have operated since long before humans walked this land, and will continue long after. Tonight, you're simply present for one iteration of this eternal process, and that presence feels like exactly the right place to be. The mist continues to thicken and lift, creating an ever-changing landscape that invites you deeper into the profound quiet of evening rain on an old farm, where the simplest natural processes become sources of wonder. When witnessed with unhurried attention, the pull to explore draws you gently away from the misty courtyard, and you find yourself moving toward the farmhouse itself, where a narrow wooden staircase leads upward along the exterior wall. Your feet find each weathered step with quiet certainty. The old wood solid beneath you, despite its age. The rain continues its steady conversation with every surface around you. But here against the house, the sound takes on new dimensions as droplets strike the wooden siding and gather in the shallow grooves carved by decades of weather. Each step upward offers a slightly different perspective on the surrounding farm, the view expanding gradually as you climb. The barn grows smaller below, its peaked roof now visible in its entirety, dark and gleaming under the gentle rainfall. The vegetable garden becomes a patchwork of shadowed rows, while the orchard beyond resolves into individual trees, each one a distinct silhouette against the deepening evening sky. There's something deeply satisfying about this slow revelation of the landscape's full scope, like opening a familiar book to discover details you'd never noticed before. At the top of the staircase, a simple door waits, its paint worn to show patches of bare wood underneath. The doorknob turns with a smooth resistance of well-used hardware, and the door swings open to reveal a small attic room tucked directly under the farmhouse's slanted roof. This is clearly a space that has served many purposes over the years: storage room, extra bedroom, quiet retreat, and tonight it welcomes you with the particular atmosphere that belongs only to rooms positioned between earth and sky. The ceiling follows the roofline, creating cozy angles where the walls meet overhead. Rain drumming against the roof tiles creates an entirely different soundscape here, more immediate and encompassing than anywhere else on the farm. It's not just heard, but felt. A gentle percussion that seems to wrap around you from above. Each droplet's impact travels through the old tiles and wooden beams, creating tiny vibrations that make the whole room feel alive and responsive to the weather's touch. A single dormer window punctuates one slanted wall, its glass streaked with raindrops that catch and scatter what little light remains of the evening. Through this window, the view encompasses the farm's entire layout. The barn with its glowing windows, the garden rows disappearing into gathering darkness, the orchard's gentle slopes, and beyond it all, the rolling hills walls that define this valley's peaceful boundaries. From this elevated perspective, the whole scene takes on the quality of a living painting, constantly shifting as rain and mist move across the landscape. The room itself holds the accumulated warmth of the day, that particular coziness that attic spaces develop when they're tucked snugly under protective roofing. The air carries layered scents, old wood and stored memories, the faint mustiness of papers and fabrics kept safe from weather, and threading through it all, the clean freshness of rain-washed air flowing through slightly opened windows. It's a combination that speaks of time and care, of things preserved and stories held close. Wooden floorboards creak softly underfoot with each small movement, not with complaint, but with the satisfied sounds of materials that have found their place and purpose. Along one wall, built-in shelves hold an assortment of items that tell quiet stories about the generations who have used this space. Glass jars catch glints of light, their contents long settled into peaceful storage. Old books lean against each other with the comfortable familiarity of longtime companions, their spines faded to soft colors that blend harmoniously in the room's gentle dimness. A simple wooden chair sits positioned near the dormer window, angled to take full advantage of both the view and the natural light that flows through during the daytime hours. Its seat shows the gentle depression that comes from years of use, and settling into it feels like accepting an invitation that has been extended countless times before. The chair's height positions you perfectly to gaze out across the farm while remaining sheltered within the room's protective embrace. From this perch, the evening rain reveals new dimensions of its character. You can observe how it moves across the landscape in subtle waves, how certain areas receive heavier drops while others experience the gentlest misting. The vegetable garden's neat rows create channels that guide water in purposeful directions, while the orchard's uneven ground allows rain to pool in natural depressions where tree roots can drink deeply. It's a masterclass in the intersection of human planning and natural systems observed from the perfect vantage point to appreciate both perspectives. The barn below pulses with warm light that grows more noticeable as outdoor illumination continues to fade. You can just make out movement within, the subtle shifts of animals settling for the night, the brief appearance of a figure moving between stalls, the methodical rhythm of evening chores being completed with unhurried care. These glimpses of activity emphasize rather than disturb the overall sense of peaceful conclusion that defines this hour, when day's work transitions into night's rest. Rain against the attic windows creates an ever-changing pattern of water trails, each droplet following gravity's pull while being influenced by wind currents and the glass surface's subtle irregularities. Watching these miniature rivers form and merge becomes unexpectedly absorbing, a natural entertainment that requires nothing more than quiet attention. Some drops race quickly downward, while others pause and gather size before continuing their descent, creating temporary lenses that briefly magnify and distort the view beyond. The room's corners hold deeper shadows that seem to store the day's accumulated calm, These aren't empty spaces, but rather reservoirs of quietude that contribute to the attic's overall atmosphere of peaceful seclusion. Occasionally, the house settles with small sounds, the soft groan of a beam adjusting to temperature changes, the whisper of air moving through gaps between old boards. But these noises feel companionable rather than intrusive, like the breathing of a sleeping friend. Through the dormer window, the mist continues its slow dance across the farm's various levels and textures. From this elevated position, you can observe how it behaves differently in each microenvironment, how it clings to the pond's surface like a blanket, how it drifts between orchard trees and delicate streamers, how it pools in the garden's furrows before lifting and dispersing. The mist seems to have its own intelligence, responding to subtle variations in temperature and air movement with fluid grace. The steady percussion of rain on roof tiles creates a rhythm that seems to slow time itself, establishing a tempo that invites deep relaxation and contemplation. This isn't the dramatic drumming of a heavy storm, but rather the patient, consistent sound of moderate rainfall settling in for the evening. It's the kind of rain that farmers welcome, that gardens drink gratefully, that creates the perfect backdrop for reflection and rest. A small side table beside the chair holds a few simple objects that speak to this room's function as a peaceful retreat. A ceramic cup bears the faint stains of countless servings of tea or coffee enjoyed while watching weather move across the landscape. A pair of worn binoculars suggests mornings spent observing birds in the orchard, or evenings noting which lights appear in distant farmhouses. These aren't decorative items, but tools for engagement, evidence of someone who has used this space for genuine connection with the surrounding world. The evening light, what little remains of it, filters through the rain-streaked window with a quality unique to this transitional hour. It's neither day's brightness nor night's darkness, but something altogether different, a luminosity that seems to emerge from the rain itself, as if each droplet carries and shares some essential illumination. This light doesn't reveal details so much as it suggests them, creating an atmosphere where imagination and observation blend seamlessly together. As full darkness approaches, the farm below begins its transformation into a constellation of warm points of light. The barn's windows glow more steadily, while a few house windows add their own gentle illumination to the scene. These aren't harsh electric lights, but softer glows that suggest oil lamps or carefully shaded bulbs, chosen for comfort rather than intensity. From the attic room's elevated perspective, these lights create a sense of community and connection, evidence of other lives moving through their own evening routines in harmony with the rain's patient rhythm. The old farmhouse breathes quietly around you, its wooden frame expanding and contracting with subtle movements that speak of materials still alive despite their age. These tiny adjustments create a sense of being held within something organic and responsive, a structure that remains connected to the natural world from which it came. The rain continues its gentle percussion overhead, while the attic room maintains its perfect balance between shelter and connection, offering both protection from the weather and intimate access to its soothing presence. Here, suspended between the active farm below and the vast sky above, you found a space that exists specifically for moments like this, when watching rainfall becomes its own form of meditation, and the simple act of being present feels like exactly the right response to an evening that asks for nothing more than quiet, grateful attention. This quiet awareness settles around you like the evening itself, and as the light continues its gradual retreat from the windows, the sounds of the farm begin their slow transformation into something altogether different. The daytime symphony of purposeful activity, the distant lowing of cattle, the intermittent calls of chickens, the rustle of larger movements through hay and grass, gives way to a more intimate orchestration, one conducted by the rain itself, and punctuated by the smaller, more secretive voices that emerge only when the world believes itself unobserved. The rain against the window glass has developed its own distinctive rhythm now, no longer the tentative tapping of its earlier arrival, but a steady, confident percussion that speaks of weather that has found its stride. Each droplet creates its own tiny moment of contact, a brief, crystalline note that joins the thousands of others in a composition that never quite repeats itself, yet maintains a hypnotic consistency. You find yourself beginning to distinguish the different tones within this seemingly uniform sound. The sharper strikes against the glass itself, the softer impacts against the wooden window frame, the almost musical ping where drops hit the metal edge of the guttering just outside. From somewhere in the walls around you comes the subtle creaking that old timber makes as it adjusts to the changing temperature and humidity. These aren't the alarming groans of structural complaint, but rather the gentle settling sounds of wood that has learned, over decades, how to accommodate weather. Each beam and board shifts imperceptibly, creating tiny friction points that release the softest of squeaks and sighs. The farmhouse's own quiet commentary on the evening's progression. There's something deeply reassuring about these sounds, evidence of a building that has weathered countless storms and settled into a comfortable relationship with the elements. Below, through the floorboards, you can hear the muffled sounds of the main house settling into its evening rhythm. The occasional footstep crosses a distant room, deliberate and unhurried. Perhaps someone moving through their final tasks of the day, or simply walking from kitchen to sitting room as the household prepares for night. A door closes somewhere with the solid, well-fitted sound of quality craftsmanship, its click absorbed almost immediately by the house's thick walls and the rain's gentle masking. The wind has found its voice now, moving through the farm with increasing confidence as the day releases its hold on the temperature. It flows around the house in currents you can track by sound alone. A low rush as it encounters the broad side of the barn. A higher whistle where it squeezes between buildings. And here at your windows, a gentle buffeting that occasionally sends stronger streams of rain against the glass in brief, intensified bursts. The wind carries with it the accumulated sense of wet earth, sodden hay, and that particular green smell of grass, drinking deeply after a dry spell. Outside, You can hear the rain finding all the different surfaces of the farmyard, each one contributing its own note to the evening's composition. The metal roof of a nearby shed receives the precipitation with a steady drumming that rises and falls with the wind's intensity. Somewhere, water is collecting in a rain barrel or bucket, each new addition creating a slightly different pitch as the container gradually fills, a slowly ascending musical scale that marks the rain's accumulation in the most practical of terms. The old maple tree whose branches stretch near your window adds its own layer to the soundscape. Its leaves, now heavy with accumulated moisture, release their burden in irregular intervals, larger drops that have gathered and merged on the leaf surfaces until gravity finally claims them. These secondary drops hit with different rhythms than the direct rainfall, creating a sort of echo or accompaniment to the main precipitation. When the wind moves through the tree's canopy, it shakes loose dozens of these collected drops at once, creating brief showers within the shower, tiny cascades that patter against leaves below before continuing their journey to the ground. From the direction of the barn comes the occasional low sound of animals settling for the night. A cow shifts position with a soft thud and rustle of straw. A horse blows air through its nostrils in that particular way horses do when they're content and relaxed. These sounds carry a quality of satisfaction, of creatures comfortable in their shelters, dry and fed and ready for rest. There's something deeply peaceful about these animal sounds, evidence of other living beings sharing the same evening, the same weather, the same gradual transition from day to night. The rain itself seems to have developed different voices in different parts of the farm. On hard surfaces, the stone steps, the concrete of the barn foundation, the packed earth of the main pathway, it creates sharp, clean impacts. But in the garden areas, where it meets softer soil and the yielding surfaces of mulch and fallen leaves, it produces gentler, more absorbed sounds, as if the earth itself is welcoming each drop with quiet gratitude. Occasionally, through this steady orchestration, come the more distant sounds of the world beyond the farm. A car passes on the country road, its tires creating a soft hiss against the wet pavement, the sound approaching gradually, peaking as it passes the farm's entrance, then fading again until it's absorbed completely by distance and weather. The sound carries a sense of other people moving through the evening, heading toward their own warm shelters, their own evening routines, their own encounters with this same gentle rain. The temperature in your loft room has settled into that perfect range where you're neither warm nor cool, but is simply comfortable, aware of your body's temperature, only as a pleasant baseline from which to appreciate the coolness suggested by the rain sounds and the sight of wet glass. The air itself seems to have taken on a different quality, not just the increased humidity you can sense, but a kind of softness, as if the rain has washed some of the day's sharpness from the very atmosphere. Through the wall that adjoins the main house, you hear the faint sound of a radio playing in a distant room, the volume kept low enough that you can detect the rhythm and cadence of music without being able to distinguish the actual melody. It's a comforting presence, evidence of human companionship nearby, Without any demand for interaction, the music provides its own gentle counterpoint to the rain's rhythm. Two entirely different forms of organized sound coexisting in the evening air. The guttering system around the house has found its own contribution to make to the evening soundtrack. You can trace the water's journey as it flows from downspouts into drainage areas, creating a soft, gurgling sound that speaks of systems designed and installed by people who understood how rain moves, how water seeks its level, how a well-planned farm manages the gift of precipitation. There's something satisfying about these functional sounds, evidence of human ingenuity working in harmony with natural processes. A screen door somewhere in the house opens and closes quickly. Someone stepping onto a covered porch, perhaps, to check on something, or simply to smell the rain more directly before retreating back inside. The sound carries that particular spring-loaded bang that screen doors make, followed by the more solid closure of the inner door behind it. Even this brief interruption feels completely natural, part of the evening's rhythm, rather than an intrusion upon it. The darkness outside the windows is no longer the blue-gray of twilight, but is deepened into true night, making the glass surfaces into gentle mirrors that reflect the room's interior, while still allowing glimpses of the rain-altered world beyond. Occasionally, when the wind shifts the branches of the nearby tree, the pattern of these reflections changes, creating subtle movements in the visual field that complement the constant audio presence of the weather. From somewhere much more distant, perhaps from the edge of the property, where it meets wilder land, comes the brief call of a night bird, its voice carrying clearly through the rain-washed air before fading back into the weather's embrace. The sound suggests the presence of creatures for whom this rain is simply another condition to navigate, part of the natural rhythm of seasons and weather that they follow instinctively. All of these sounds layer together into something that transcends simple noise, becoming instead a three-dimensional audio environment that wraps around your consciousness like the evening itself. Each individual sound maintains its own character and timing, yet all of them work together to create a sense of being held within something larger. Not just the physical shelter of the loft room, but the broader shelter of a world where rain falls, animals rest, houses settle into night, and the ancient rhythms of weather and season continue their patient, endless dance. This larger embrace of sound and shelter becomes the bridge that carries you across the threshold between waking awareness and the soft territory of dreams. Your breathing has found its own natural cadence now, synchronized not to any conscious effort, but to the unhurried pulse of rain against glass, the subtle expansion and contraction of old wood, the patient rhythm of a farmhouse that has witnessed thousands of such nights. The transition happens so gradually that there's no moment when you could say, "Now I am dreaming." Instead, the boundaries simply become more fluid, like watercolors bleeding gently into one another on dampened paper. The bedroom around you begins to participate in this softening of edges. The quilted coverlet that rests across your body seems to grow more substantial and lighter at the same time, its weight settling into exactly the comfort your muscles didn't know they were seeking. Each square of fabric in the quilt pattern tells its own small story, a fragment of blue cotton that might once have been part of a work shirt, a triangle of yellow calico that could have adorned a kitchen curtain, pieces of family history stitched together with careful hands on winter evenings much like this one. Your fingers, relaxed now against the worn softness, can feel the slight irregularities in the stitching that speak of human patience rather than machine precision. The wooden floorboards beneath the braided rug continue their quiet conversations, creaking softly in places where decades of footsteps have taught them the particular music of human habitation. These aren't the sharp protests of new construction finding its footing, but the mellowed sighs of timber that has learned to move gracefully with changes in humidity and temperature. Tonight, with moisture from the rain subtly affecting the air, the wood expands just enough to create these gentle sounds, a barely audible percussion that adds another layer to the night's composition. Your dreams, when they begin to emerge, don't arrive with fanfare or dramatic imagery. Instead, they seep in like the rain itself, starting as impressions, fleeting sensations that might be memories or might be the farmhouse sharing its own long collection of experiences. You find yourself walking through rooms that feel familiar, yet impossible to place. Spaces where the wallpaper breathes with tiny flowers that seem to nod in approval as you pass. The floorboards under your dream feet know exactly how much pressure to expect, never creaking unexpectedly, supporting each step with the confidence of long partnership. In this dreamed version of the farmhouse, the rain sounds different. Not louder or softer, but somehow more musical, as if each droplet were chosen specifically for its contribution to an ongoing symphony. You move to a window that might be the same one beside your sleeping form, or might be another window entirely, one that looks out over fields that stretch beyond the boundaries of the waking world. The glass is cool against your palm, real enough that you can feel the slight vibrations as raindrops strike the outer surface, each impact creating tiny tremors that travel through the pane and into your skin. The scent of the room shifts and deepens in the dream state, becoming something richer than the already comforting combination of lavender sachets, old wood, and clean cotton. There's the smell of bread rising somewhere in the depths of the house, though no baker tends it, just the eternal ghost of countless loaves that have been kneaded and shaped and left to grow, patient and round in warm kitchens. There's the fragrance of herbs hanging to dry in some distant pantry, their oils still potent even in this dreamscape, adding notes of sage and rosemary and something indefinably green that speaks of summer gardens remembered through winter nights. The boundaries between yourself and the room continue to soften as sleep deepens. The rhythm of your heartbeat seems to align itself with the settling of the house, each gentle pulse echoing in the wood around you. Your body has found the precise position on the mattress where every curve and angle is supported, where the feather pillow cradles your head with exactly the right combination of firmness and yield. The cotton sheets, softened by years of washing and wearing, rest against your skin without any awareness of where fabric ends and you begin. In the floating space of deeper dreams, you become aware of the farmhouse's history in ways that bypass ordinary understanding. You sense the countless nights when other sleepers have rested in this same room, their dreams adding layers to the atmosphere like sediment, forming rock over geological time. There's the young woman who once embroidered pillowcases by lamplight at the small writing desk in the corner, her careful stitches forming flowers and vines that would outlast her lifetime. There's the elderly farmer who spent his final years in this room, watching the seasons change through the same window, his contentment settling into the walls like smoke from a well-tended fire. These presences aren't ghostly or unsettling. They're simply part of the room's deep comfort, the accumulation of peaceful sleeps and gentle awakenings that have seasoned this space like a cast-iron pen, seasoned by decades of careful use. Each previous occupant has left behind not disturbance, but blessing, a contribution to the profound restfulness that now holds you in its patient embrace. The room knows how to cradle human dreams, has learned through repetition and care exactly what sleepers need most. The rain continues its work outside, but in the dream realm, it becomes something more than weather. It transforms into a kind of time itself, each droplet carrying within it a moment from the long story of this place. You hear in its sound the springs when it nourished the first green shoots pushing through dark earth, the summers when it provided relief from heat that shimmered above the fields, the autumns when it helped prepare the ground for winter's rest. This isn't just tonight's rain, but all the rain that has ever fallen here, compressed into a single ongoing song that speaks of cycles within cycles, patterns of renewal that extend far beyond human awareness. Your breathing has become so naturally synchronized with these larger rhythms that there's no separation between the air moving in and out of your lungs and the great breathing of the earth itself, the slow inhalation of moisture rising from soil and streams, the gentle exhalation of rain returning to complete the circle. In this state, sleep isn't something that happens to you, but something you participate in, a collaboration between your individual need for rest and the farmhouse's accumulated wisdom about providing it. The coverlet rises and falls with each breath, creating its own microclimate of warmth and comfort. Beneath its gentle weight, the fabric has absorbed not just the lavender scent from the sachets tucked between linens in the nearby chest, but also the more subtle fragrances of all the seasons this room has witnessed. The green smell of spring rain, the honey warmth of summer afternoons, the crisp promise of winter mornings when frost painted delicate forests on the window panes. Dreams within dreams begin to unfold now, each one nestled inside the other like a series of wooden dolls, each complete in itself, yet part of a larger wholeness. You find yourself in the farmhouse garden during a gentle summer shower, feeling the warm rain on your skin while you stand among tomato plants heavy with fruit and bean vines climbing their careful poles. The water pools in the broad leaves of squash plants, creating tiny mirrors that reflect a sky, both gray and luminous, pregnant with the promise of clearing. But even as you experience this summer dream, you remain aware of the autumn night surrounding your sleeping form, the two seasons existing simultaneously without contradiction. The rain falling on the dream garden is the same rain drumming against the bedroom window, separated not by conflict, but by the generous elasticity of consciousness at rest. Time becomes layered rather than linear, allowing you to inhabit multiple moments of peace without having to choose between them. In another fold of dream, you discover yourself in the farmhouse kitchen during the deep blue hour before dawn, watching someone's grandmother, though whether she belongs to your family line or the house's history remains beautifully unclear, as she tends a kettle warming on an old wood stove. Her movements are economical and sure, born from decades of early mornings and the quiet rituals that ease the transition from night to day. She doesn't speak, but her presence radiates the kind of contentment that comes from a life spent in harmony with natural rhythms. Her gray hair pinned back with the same practical care she brings to every task. The kettle begins its low singing, not yet the full whistle that will announce the water's readiness, but the preliminary humming that old kettles do as steam first begins to form. This sound blends seamlessly with the rain's percussion, creating a harmony that speaks of comfort being prepared, of warmth being offered, of care being taken even in the small hours when most of the world sleeps. Back in the waking world, though the distinction has become wonderfully irrelevant, your body continues its gradual surrender to complete rest. Every muscle group has found its natural state of release, from the tiny muscles around your eyes that have finally stopped their constant micro-adjustments, to the long muscles of your legs that have settled into the mattress like rivers finding their beds after spring flood. Your hands lie open beside you, palms turned slightly upward in an unconscious gesture of receptivity, your fingers curved just enough to suggest the shape of holding something precious, though what you hold now is simply the gift of this moment, this breath, this heartbeat in the larger heartbeat of the sleeping house. The temperature in the room has achieved that perfect balance where you're neither seeking more warmth nor wishing to cast off covers, where your body temperature and the air around you exist in such harmony that the boundary between inner and outer climate disappears. The slight coolness from the rain-washed air mingles with the warmth generated by your relaxed circulation, creating an envelope of comfort that adjusts itself automatically to your needs without any conscious effort on your part. This cocoon of perfectly balanced temperature becomes the foundation from which you gradually become aware of something new stirring at the edges of your consciousness. There's a subtle shift happening in the quality of darkness beyond your closed eyelids, not the sudden intrusion of artificial light, but rather the patient, almost imperceptible way that night begins its gentle conversation with morning. The rain continues its steady percussion against the farmhouse windows, but now there's something different in the sound. A clearer note, as if the drops are falling through air that has been washed clean and made transparent by hours of this patient downpour. The first hint of dawn doesn't arrive as brightness, but as a barely perceptible warming in the darkness, the way a piece of black velvet might appear slightly less absolute when held beside coal. Your body registers this change before your mind does. Some ancient circadian awareness, stirring like a cat, stretching in sleep, not quite waking, but acknowledging the earth's slow turn toward morning. The rain-soaked air carries with it now the faintest suggestion of something new, a freshness that speaks of beginnings rather than endings, of seeds germinating in the soaked soil and leaves unfurling their faces toward a sun that hasn't yet appeared. Through the rain-kissed glass of the old farmhouse windows, the first traces of dawn begin their subtle work. Each droplet clinging to the window pane acts like a tiny lens, gathering what little light exists in this pre-dawn moment and bending it into soft, diffused patterns that dance slowly across the interior walls. The glass itself, old and slightly uneven, adds its own character to this emerging light show, creating gentle distortions that make the approaching dawn feel like something viewed through water, soft and dreamlike and infinitely peaceful. You can sense, rather than see, how the rain has transformed the view beyond these windows. Where yesterday there might have been dust motes dancing in afternoon sunbeams, now there's the clean clarity that only comes after a thorough washing by nature's own hand. The air beyond the glass has been scrubbed clean, every particle of dust and pollen settled or washed away, leaving behind an atmosphere so pure it seems to shimmer with its own subtle light. The trees, the barn, the old wooden fence posts, everything in the farmyard landscape has been given this same careful attention by the night's rain. As your awareness expands to take in this gentle transformation, you notice how the sound of the rain itself has evolved through the night. What began as the urgent drumming of a storm has settled into something more like a lullaby, each drop finding its own note as it strikes different surfaces in the awakening farmyard. Some drops create tiny bell-like chimes as they hit the metal roof of the barn, while others make soft plopping sounds as they land in the puddles that have formed in the dirt pathways. There's the whisper of rain through leaves, the gentle patter against wooden shutters, and underneath it all, the almost subliminal sound of water finding its way through gutters and downspouts, following gravity's patient guidance toward the earth below. This symphony of precipitation has become the soundtrack for dawn's arrival, each raindrop adding its voice to a chorus that's been building all night long. Your breathing has synchronized itself to this rhythm without your conscious direction, each inhalation drawing in the clean, moisture-laden air, while each exhalation releases any lingering tension from the deeper spaces of your lungs. The oxygen itself seems different now, charged with the negative ions that rain creates, giving each breath a quality of freshness that reaches beyond your lungs to energize your entire system in the gentlest possible way. Through those rain-painted windows, the landscape begins its daily metamorphosis from the mysterious shadows of night to the soft, gray-green world of a rainy dawn. Colors that have been sleeping in darkness start to whisper their presence, not bold or bright, but muted and watercolor soft, as if an artist has been working through the night with brushes dipped in cloud water and morning mist. The green of grass and leaves appears first, a shade so subtle it might be imagined, followed by the warm browns of wooden barn siding that have been darkened and enriched by their night-long soaking. Even the sky itself participates in this gentle awakening, transforming from the deep velvet black of true night to shades of charcoal and pewter that shift and flow like slow-moving water. The clouds, heavy with their burden of rain, catch the first suggestions of light and reflect them back in tones of silver and pearl, creating a ceiling that seems both solid and ethereal, protective and ever-changing. This is not the dramatic sunrise of clear mornings with their bold oranges and reds, but something far more subtle and contemplative. A sunrise filtered through water and air until it becomes pure atmosphere. The old farmhouse itself seems to breathe with contentment in this rain-washed morning. You can feel how the wooden beams and floorboards have absorbed moisture from the air, expanding slightly in that way that old wood does, settling into new configurations with tiny creaks and sighs that sound like the house is stretching after a good night's sleep. The walls seem to radiate a deeper warmth now, as if the rain has awakened some essential quality in the timber, some memory of the living trees these boards once were, reminding them of seasons when they drank deeply from spring showers and summer storms. This sense of the house as a living thing extends to every surface around you. The cotton sheets against your skin seem softer, as if the humid air has relaxed their fibers into a more perfect embrace. The pillow supporting your head has found exactly the right density, neither too firm nor too yielding, shaped by the weight of your head into a custom cradle that supports you with architectural precision. Even the slight draft that occasionally whispers through the room seems purposeful now, carrying with it the sense of wet earth and growing things, of ozone and possibility. Through the distorting lens of rain-covered glass, you catch glimpses of the farm's morning rituals beginning, though everything moves with the unhurried pace that rainy mornings seem to inspire. Perhaps there's the suggestion of movement in the barn, animals stirring to greet the day with the patient contentment of creatures who understand that weather is simply another texture in the fabric of existence. The chickens, if there are chickens, might be making soft morning sounds from their protected roost, not the urgent calls of a sunny morning, but the gentler murmurs that rain seems to encourage. The old dog might be stretching on the covered porch, perfectly content to watch the rain without any need to venture out into it just yet. There's no urgency in this rain-soaked morning, no pressing need to rush toward the activities that bright sunshine might inspire. Instead, everything moves with the patience of water itself, finding its level naturally, responding to the rhythms that rain creates, rather than fighting against them. Your own body mirrors this unhurried pace of the rainy dawn. Your heartbeat has found its most restful rhythm, pumping with the steady reliability of the rain itself, neither rushed nor sluggish, but perfectly calibrated to this moment of peaceful transition. Your circulation carries warmth to every extremity, with efficient gentleness, ensuring that your fingers and toes remain comfortably warm despite the coolness that the rain has brought to the air. This is the circulation of deep rest, of a body that has found its optimal state of relaxation and settled into it like a favorite chair. The muscles in your face have released completely, your jaw unclenched, your forehead smooth, your eyes resting easily behind closed lids that no longer need to work at staying closed. This facial relaxation spreads downward through your neck and shoulders, through your arms and torso, reaching your legs and feet with the thorough completeness of rain, soaking into thirsty ground. Each muscle group discovers its own perfect state of rest, not the limpness of exhaustion, but the poised relaxation of a body perfectly at ease with itself and its surroundings. As the light filtering through the rain-kissed glass grows gradually stronger, you become aware of how this gentle illumination is painting new patterns across the interior of the room. The water droplets on the windows act like tiny prisms, breaking whatever light reaches them into component colors so subtle they exist at the very edge of perception. A hint of violet here, the suggestion of green there, colors that seem to exist more in feeling than in sight, creating an atmosphere of gentle enchantment that transforms this simple farmhouse room into something approaching magic. And so the story gently fades like stars at dawn. Sleep well, dear listener. I'll be here whenever you need me. Good night.